Thank you.
Very good. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to part 2 of the CMMC GCCM Cloud Migration Webinar hosted by Infotek and Deltek. We appreciate everyone's time as we head into a busy 2025. My name's Bruce Walter, and I'm one of the principal sales executives at Infotek and one of the points of contact for cloud migration. Before we go into the agenda, I'd like to share some webinar logistics. If everyone can stay on mute during the duration of the webinar to avoid background noise, that'd be super helpful. Second, if anybody has any questions, please put them in the Zoom chat to everyone. And if we don't answer them during the presentation, we'll be sure to catch them in the Q&A. On Tuesday, Michael Greenman of Deltek presented part 1 of the webinar on the latest CMMC update and why now is the time to migrate to GCCM. It's a lot of C's. Michael's in this meeting to add any expertise for the Q&A section of the agenda. Here's the agenda for part 2, today's webinar, where we'll actually take you through what's involved in a successful cloud migration and provide an actionable plan to get you there on schedule and within budget. Next slide, please. Presenting today will be Gautam Mendarata, our president, CEO, and founder. John Commons, our lead migration consultant, will be on in support Q&A section. And Michael Greenman, I believe, is on as well for Q&A, if that comes up later. Next slide. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Infotek Consultant and why we're Deltek's partner of choice for cloud migrations. In addition to being a multiple Deltek Partner of the Year award winner, we're almost at our 20-year anniversary. Our consultants have over 100 years of successful project delivery experience. Wholly focused on GovCon, our customer base spans many vertical industries within GovCon. And those of us that live in that vertical, it's actually sub-verticals, as the industries on the right say. And there's very specific needs and requirements of each of those. And we work with many, many in all of them. Next slide, please. I spoke to that. So this is, at the Project Con, we've won MVP awards for delivering very large integration projects in terms of companies, mergers, and acquisition. Also, a real successful project that was delivered in just a couple of months for a very large customer. And there's Gautam accepting the award with Deltek leadership. Next, please. So we've delivered over 400 cloud migrations from the first days when Deltek launched CostPoint in the cloud. Even before then, we developed a conversion tool for GCS to CostPoint. So some of our customers have used Infotek for the conversions from GCS to CostPoint, CostPoint on-prem to CostPoint in the cloud, to CostPoint SaaS to GCCM. These types of migrations are in our DNA. We've always had a tremendous reputation for innovation and security. For example, we developed an integration platform as a service for things like payroll providers, expense management, and many other third-party integrations with CostPoint. Next, please, G. So here's a little bit more granular view of our capabilities. If you take 2 things away from this slide, think of us as innovators enabling your digital transformation, and that we always keep security top of mind in all our projects. We'll post the presentations and recordings of both webinar parts 1 and 2 in the next few days and send that link to all registrants. It'll include contact information if you'd like to move forward on your migration. And with that, I'll turn it over to Gautam, who will take us into the migration process itself. Gautam?
Thanks, Bruce, for the introduction and background on who we are. As Bruce mentioned, this is part 2 of the CMC and GCCM migration. We're going to focus mostly on our capabilities and how do we get you from either Deltek's GCC offering or on-premise to GCC moderate offering. Infotek has been a cybersecurity specialist for quite some time now. We are ITAR certified. We're going to be FedRAMP ready. And we have been working with NIST 800, 171, and 53 for almost 8 years now. Pretty much what our capabilities include is in the area that we can do gap assessment, remediation, pre-audit readiness assessment, and obviously take your Deltek's moderate cloud. We're also accredited by CyberAB as an RPO, with having both RPA and RP in our staff. So why choose Infotek for GCCM? We have a purpose-built offering that allows your databases to be lifted and converted from SQL Server to Oracle and be migrated on the Deltek's Moderate Cloud. Deltek's Moderate Cloud does rely on Oracle backend. So if you got on SQL Server, that is a database or platform conversion that you have to be accounted for. Also, we sit on top, as everybody knows, Deltek sits on top of AWS GovCloud. They have the scalability and accessibility to be able to expand as much as you like and grow as much as you like, and be able to provide you a compliant solution that's DCA ready and it's also FedRAMP ready. Just spend a minute to talk about what is included in the CostPoint Moderate Cloud offering. End of the day, you have, just like those of you that are on the standard cloud, you have the prod and non-prod environments. And then if you have the enterprise cloud offering within the moderate, you get the development environment. Again, the moderate cloud is built on Oracle backend, not SQL. If you're on GCC standard, it's built on SQL. And then the difference here between standard and moderate is that the production only will have your production database, production environment that is. The non-prod environment will have your sandbox and test and config. If you're not in the enterprise, you get config and sandbox. If you're enterprise, you will get the test and dev. Also with enterprise, you get extensions to be able to develop your own extensions, and you get ODBC, which is an add-on in the non-enterprise cloud. The reason Deltek has this offering is because they want to follow change management. For those with complex integrations and complex business requirements that will use enterprise, the idea there is you do the development in the dev environment, then you promote it to non-prod for testing, and then from there to prod. So Deltek has done a great job of providing you the change management that's needed as well. Okay, what does this mean? I know this slide seems to be a lot. End of the day, it is to protect your data and your infrastructure. So Deltek does require a process. This is a pre-migration process that will allow you to have your identity provider be able to be configured with the Deltek cloud. As we all know, Deltek can take up to 6 weeks to get the environment stood up. So there is, once the deal has been executed, Deltek can take up to 6 weeks to get the environment stood up. Once the environment is stood up, there is a handshake call where you will have your success manager and your SaaS admin that you identified during the contract to go set the identity provider up, make sure you have all the credentials. And once the identity provider has been set up and you have the credentials, that process is finished. That is the Deltek getting you onboarded on their infrastructure and their environment. The key thing to remember here is that as you negotiate with Deltek on your GCC moderate, please make sure you identify the right SaaS admin. The SaaS admin is someone that should be able to work with your IT or be in IT to get your identity provider configured. Then you also have to work with Infotek to get our contract set up. We will get our credentials working with your IT on your internet provider, whether it be Azure, Duo, or Ping, and make sure we have access to your environment. Once these 3 steps are completed with getting your infrastructure ready and getting your sign-on configured, we then start handling the migration process itself. So these, if you can just think about this, these first 3 steps are a prequel to get the actual process going. We will then take your database and do an ETL, patch it to Deltek's cloud level, and upload it to Deltek for your first test conversion. Again, this is all pre-migration, and it's important to get this step right to make the process flow smoothly. All right, so the timeline at a high level is inclusive of 2 weeks from getting the statement of work set up for Infotek. This is more focused on Infotek to get the statement of work completed and get our project plan put together, our resources identified, and getting the infrastructure ready. Deltek, after that, take 2 weeks to provision the cost-point environment and making sure our teams are coordinating with Deltek's team as well. And it takes 2 to 4 weeks for after the first test conversion for your team to go through the user acceptance testing. That is phase 2. In retrospect, a lot of organizations can do it quicker depending on their size and complexity, or take longer here, again, depending on their size and complexity. This is the area that actually usually gets expanded out. And then the phase 3 is for if you have any user training or any other new modules you may want to add on as you migrate. It's usually in phase 3. Again, 2 to 4 weeks, depending on how much training is needed and what add-ons you're doing. Obviously, phase 4 is, taking you guys live and adding on the modules post the go live. And then phase X is actual project closure. Overall, this is what we said. This is the timeline that's needed for the actual migration. The holistic timeline will be a lot longer, obviously. This is just the time that's needed to work on getting the migration completed. The task level migration is obviously the project kickoff, getting the credentials we talked about, getting your migration done. So actually getting the databases and converting it over and uploading to Deltek Cloud can take up to 2 weeks. Hosting the training, user acceptance testing for 2 weeks that we talked about earlier. And then obviously the UAT reporting, right? Infotek will provide you with our user acceptance testing plan, and we will make sure that we enable your success by reviewing those and identifying any areas that may need more training or reporting or optimization. And again, the go live is also very important. This is coordinated with Deltek, so our team, our PMs, will work with Deltek's cloud team to make sure that the go live data has been scheduled, the timeline has been provided, a dry run of the database has happened, and then we are around to take you live, so your users are not affected, and they have the communication plan that's needed to succeed. It can post the go live. We will continue working with you for 2 weeks, or if you need longer, we can be around needing longer, and then close the project off 5 days after you've been gone live and are stable. So that's the task level. All right, so I'll pause for a minute and let you guys talk about, well, let's discuss about keys to success, right? We want to make sure that end of the day, we're here to, as an implementer, help you guys succeed in the migration. Although it is from hopefully the same version that you're currently on, COS.8.2 to COS.8.2, we want to make sure we identify any system configuration requirements you may have or any customizations that you may have done to your database. It also helps us understand your expectations and skill sets of your users. We will always assign a PM to this cloud migration. Usually PMs are the liaisons between our delivery team and Deltek Cloud team and your client's team itself. So the PMs are a key stakeholder here to make sure the project comes on time, under budget. So they are a key driver of the success of this project, of the cloud migration. And then collaboration, again, it's important to collaborate with the Cost-Point Success Manager and the Deltek Cloud Ops team. I can't emphasize enough how important that is, only because we want to make sure that your infrastructure is lined up, the resources are lined up, and your team has a collaboration and communication plan with Deltek. UAT, of course, is important, because without saying, this will fall back on the customers to make sure that they have the transition will be successful by testing out the capabilities of the Deltek Cloud, and any feedback that's provided to us will be addressed. And of course, go live support. Like we mentioned, we do offer 2 to 3 weeks of post go live support. If needed, we do offer a support agreement that can last up to 12 months. So a case study that we've done recently is STR. There were greater than 500 employees. They were in manufacturing. So of course their data had to had to be protected. They did classify the data to be CUI. They coordinated with Deltek and they coordinated with Infotek to get the transition and the paperwork signed and get them to the moderate cloud just to make sure the data classification of CUI data is being protected. And the feedback we got was that was a great relationship and we were extremely knowledgeable. Predominantly because we've done so many of these and we have a purpose-built tool that it was streamlined and seamless for the customer to get transitioned properly within 3 to 4 months.
Yeah, and got them, the driver for them was they were just coming across more contracts that they wanted to bid on where the GCCM was a requirement. So it wasn't as much as being compliant from an auditor's perspective, but just having the presence of mind and reducing the risk of exposure to be able to bid on all these contracts. So they viewed it as strategic to their business to be able to have GCCM in place so they could go after any contracts they wanted to.
That's right. Thanks, Bruce. And the key point Bruce made, and I think Michael made in the round one, was to remember this is not just your obligation, your contractual obligation to the DoD or the different federal agencies. It's also your prime. So if you're a sub, we've seen customers that are subs to the big 4 or 5 government contractors like the Lockheeds of the world. In their contract, DFARS 7012 was called out. So not only did they, as we are all aware that it applies to DIBS, and as part of the defense industrial base, they'll have to be compliant. So as a subcontractor, you'll have to be compliant to the prime contractor. So making sure your data classification and your contractual obligations are identified in your matrix, in your system security plan, and your matrix is important. So please make sure you review your contractual obligation. Just some quotes from our customers that have gone through the migrations or have gone through implementations, and majority of the customers have been super happy how seamless and easy we made the migration. And thanks to the Infotek team, like we said, it's muscle memory at this point. We've been doing this for over 400 plus customers. All right, call to action. So we're going to talk about some of this. We have put together a migration questionnaire. As you go down the journey of evaluating the Deltek GCCM cloud, the questionnaire helps identify the implementer and internally of all the different integrations that you may need or any customization that you may have done. It also helps us get ready for the size of the database to make sure that we're able to handle and what the timeline will look like as well. So we do have a questionnaire that Deltek and Infotek require as part of this transition. We do set up a Q&A session with your tech team and your functional teams to make sure we identify any custom code and any third-party integrations. That is important. There are technical reasons why this needs to be identified. As Deltek has and Michael has already pointed out, we take data seriously, making sure protecting every data is important, and having these third-party integrations identified goes a long way, right? We will get you a GCCM cloud infrastructure from Deltek sales executive, and obviously get you our estimates as well. And then, of course, we review the questionnaire, identify the key personnel, and get the project kicked off to get you the GCC moderate cloud. Again, it is a separate cloud. So if you're used to the GCC cloud, remember the moderate is more secure. There are dependencies like PGP keys. There are dependencies like the identity provider, SFTP. So it is more secure to protect your data. So all these items that you identify early on makes the transition goes much smoother and quicker. All right, guys. I guess my New York minute, I'm talking really faster than expected. So we're way ahead on this presentation. We wanted to get to the Q&A. We knew there's been a lot more questions than actual discussion. So we will go ahead and go through some of the questions that were put together on the registration page.
Hey, Gautam, can you go back one slide? You mentioned something that's really important. So like we're working with a big customer now that's, been on CostPoint for over 20 years. And their big concern is like making sure integrations don't break and some of the things they've built in over time, even in their time collection system. So they're choosing to work with us to kind of analyze that up front before undergoing the migration. Then there's, so it's almost like a pre-migration assessment. And that's where customers have a lot of trepidation in some of those custom integrations. And that's one area where we're really in-depth and knowledgeable about helping them with. So we can optimize it before the migration to make sure there's no glitches and you don't lose any data.
Thanks, Bruce. So attendees wanted to understand the process of requiring CMC. What we have done is we have actually put together the link for you to get that. I'll open it up to get this PDF. The Cyber AV body has done a really good job of identifying all the different requirements and that's needed. So they have laid out the phases for you. It's not that long of a doc. I read it. It's 20 some pages. So what we recommend is for you to review this doc, and that will help you get CMC level 2. So please, 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 please go through this document. The CMC requirements and migration specify details about CMC requirements, how to migrate these standards. End of the day, at a high level, that document actually walks you through this, but you have to generate system requirements matrix for all standards parts of your security plan, strategy for the gap assessments, remediation, pre-audit readiness, conformity, complete and report assessment, audit and issue certificate by 3PO. Michael covered some of this in his slide on Tuesday. He even gave you, it went a step ahead and gave you what the estimates look like. The key things to remember here, there is a huge queue. We're hearing from the 3POs, there's 6 months to 8 months out to even start engaging newer customers. So remember this, the longer you wait, the longer it'll be in queue for you. Keeping up with cybersecurity, we, as part of the slide deck, will send you out, there are a lot of different links posted on here. If you don't know what classification of your data is or what the CUI classification of your data is, there is the National Archives. You click on the link and get to the National Archives website that will help you categorize the data. I will show an example quickly. It is all categorized for you, so you can go through different areas and see if it's considered CTI, CDI, or CUI. Okay. And then again, cybersecurity is always evolving, so make sure that there's 4 major things to understand. There's a risk governance, risk identification, risk assessment, and risk response. This is right from ISC2 Security Congress, so it's always evolving and always going in continuous monitoring. So it's important for you to have your security matrix put together. The biggest question we have is like, how do we identify which risk management framework should we use? You know, FedRAMP, there's CMC, there is Zero Trust, right? There's ISO 27000. The key thing to understand is your CISO or your IT should be working to identify all the different compliance needs you may have and which risk mitigation framework to use. List those out, identify the overlapping gaps, and see how you can identify, how you're going to remediate or be compliant with those different requirements. So it's important to go through that exercise as an organization. With that, I'll open up the Q&A. So we have plenty of time. On this presentation.
There's a couple in here, got them. So is the user interface the same from standard to moderate?
That is correct. Yes, it's the same user interface. Just the back end is different. It's Oracle. So that if you had the biggest challenge there is if you have any custom reports that were created using native T-SQL, we will have to convert those, and CostPoint BI will have to convert those from T-SQL to PL SQL.
begs another follow-on question. So if a customer is licensed for BI and they use out-of-the-box reports on SQL, will they have those same reports available in Oracle?
Yes, all out-of-the-box reports will continue working with no issues in both clouds. It's only the custom reports that may need some optimization.
Great, thanks. Here's another one. So that matrix you showed before, got them? Does it cut if their customers on GCCM, do they need to fill it out to verify compliance? I think it was in the assessment document.
Talking about this?
No, it was on that last slide with where you took them into the Security Congress or the other. It was through one of these links.
Yep.
Yeah, that.
Yep. It's this. So sorry. What's the? Let me open up the cushion. Customer to fill out matrix if they're so it is a shared responsibility. Your security matrix should just not be your ERP. It's going to be your full infrastructure, right? Your laptops, your file shares. It's not just related to Modern Cloud. From an ERP standpoint of view, Deltek Modern Cloud is level 2. Michael, do you want to add anything else to that? Greenman, that is, if he's still on.
Hey, sorry, I'm Gautam. I'm kind of dual purposing here. What was the question?
The question is, does the customer need to fill out this matrix if they're a GCCM to verify they're compliant? I answered that it is that your security matrix is not just your ERP. They have to have their infrastructure be compliant to the security matrix, right? So really the answer for the ERP is, do they still need to fill it out if they're already on GCCM?
So when it comes to a CMMC audit, it'll be a different process. The auditor, the certified third-party assessor, going by the CMMC rule and the CMMC assessment program guidelines, they will ask for, and there's a bit of an open question as to how this process works. Still waiting for some guidance on that, but it'll be separate from the regular CMMC assessment of the rest of the organization. So yeah, CostPoint GCCM for any CUI data that's, as a part of your, you, the customer, you, the organization seeking certification, if there's any data that's going into CostPoint GCCM, what the auditor will ask you for vis-a-vis Deltek is for the body of evidence to demonstrate equivalence for FedRAMP moderate. So it's kind of separate, but still obviously a part of the same audit, but it's handled a little bit differently because cloud service providers are kind of an oddball entity, if you will, when it comes to a CMMC level 2 or level 3 audit. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thanks, Michael. Michelle, did
That was a great answer from my not very clear question, so appreciate it, Michael.
Of course.
Is there any different speed of moderate version any slower? No, it's not slower. If anything, it should be faster. Oracle database just handles large amount of data much quicker than SQL does, only because CostPoint is a JTEE application, so it's built on Java, and Oracle database is on Oracle owns both Java framework and the Oracle database, so there is no derogation of your product. And Lance, yes, we will get these slides over.
Yeah, we'll send out a link to Tuesday's part 1 and today's part 2 with the recording and the slide decks for both parts.
The only thing to remember is that as part of this migration, make sure the more you identify what customizations you have, any extensions or any custom SQL objects, type of custom reports, if you can identify, you pre-qual that, this transition becomes much, much, much easier. Just remember, end of the day, it is lift and shift. So you shouldn't have many changes. The more you identify up front, the easier this migration becomes. Any changes regarding the mobile app for cost-front with Moderate? No changes. Just remember that it does use SAML authentication in Moderate, so you will need to have that configured so single sign-on supported. The app itself from UI UX has not changed. Only the authentication is single sign-on only.
Give it another minute, and then I think we can give people back some time in their day.
Great. Well, we're available. If you have anything else, just shoot us an email. We'll get those questions answered, and then we'll send a slide deck out after the call.
Great. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate your
you.
time and interest.
Thank you.
Thanks.